right now I'm with Dr. Tim Brown, and anyone in the major pretty much knows he is the one in charge of everything. So, to start it off, what is your role in the radio television program?
First and foremost, I'm a faculty member who teaches primarily in the broadcast journalism area, but I also do classes in media and society. I have taught in the graduate program and still occasionally teach for our graduate program here in the Nicholson School. I'm also the area coordinator, which I often joke means that all I do is sign forms and get yelled at. But the idea is to take care of a lot of the paperwork for the program, make sure that schedules are set, that faculty are teaching the classes that they want to and need to teach, making sure we have enough classes for our students, and also looking ahead. Where is the program going? What do we need to do to keep pace with changes out there? And how do we make sure that we get the things we need in order to keep pace with what's out there?
So what work experience do you have in the field? Because earlier I was talking about, I've noticed all the teachers have experience in the field. They just didn't go from college to professors. So what work experience do you have?
It depends on what you mean by the field. If you talk about radio and television, I spent
Yes.
12 years as a news reporter and anchor at various stations around the Southeast. Was in sports, photographer, assistant news director, executive producer, assignment editor. I've pretty much done everything in the newsroom with the exception of weather. Weather is a little bit too much pressure. They actually expect you to get it right. So it's the joke I often use. But I've done everything pretty much since, except for weather. Did that for 12 years, had a great time, enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, met some really interesting people, met some really interesting celebrities. And had a great time, but knew there was something more for me to do. And that's what led me into higher education. And I've been doing that for 13 years. And so I had a great career in television news, and now have been doing a lot of stuff. And pretty much all the time I've spent in higher education has been looking ahead. How do we make things better? What do we do to create a better product? And so I guess that would be my experience in this field.
How did everything become so organized in the program? Because in my earlier podcast or video cast, I was talking about, like, we have the listserv, pre-registration, and now you recently added the mandatory orientation. So how did that all start?
Reaction, but being proactive and reactive. One of the things that we noticed early on was that people were not getting enough information directly from RTV, and so we developed this listserv, and the idea was that people who wanted the information would sign up for it. We weren't going to mandate they had to sign up for it, but we said, look, if you want this stuff, this is how we're sending it out. Well, in the age of social media, we've gotten a Twitter feed, we've gotten a Facebook feed, and so we asked people to sign up for that as well, so that they can keep up to date. And the idea is just, here's one place you can go to find out this information, rather than hearing snippets here and there. The pre-registration form really grew out of a place I had been previously, where people were expected to fill out an order of courses. Here's when we're going to take it, and we just want to know how many sections we need. Give you an example: we have 2 sections of EJ1 this semester. We've known about that for 18 months. We've known we're going to need that for 18 months, and so we've been able to plan because these forms have been coming in. And people have told us when they want to do it. So it's a very valuable tool for us. It's a pain for the students. I recognize that. The other thing it does is that particular form can be controversial, but it tells us how much people really want this degree. Typically, we look at it, if somebody is late in turning it in every time, if we have to remind them to turn it in past deadline, then that's a sign for us that they really don't particularly want this, that it's not that important to them. And that I don't want someone who's kind of just coasting through to take a spot away from someone who really wants it, and so that's why we put that little hurdle there.
And the orientation?
Orientation, actually, I saw other areas doing it, and it made a big difference. And in order to try to get people right at the beginning and say, here are the things you ought to be doing, I copied it. I flat out copied it from what other people were doing. We've done 2 of them. They seem to be working out well. It seems to be making a difference. We'll see as people progress, but I think the more information you can get to people right at the outset, the more you empower them to help them make their own decisions, the better off they are.
I was like, why would you recommend, like, the UCF radio television program as compared to like other schools, especially like competing schools like UF or
UF is great. I have a lot of friends who teach at Florida. I have friends who teach at Florida State. I have friends who teach at South Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. Those are great programs. They do things a little bit differently. Some of them do them similarly, some of them do them differently. I think what we offer is, I think we offer flexibility. We're one of the few places that still has a full studio and still does a full production program. And we like that. We think that separates us from other programs. A lot of people are either doing only digital media or only news. They're not doing traditional television production. Now that will change in how it's disseminated, but people are still going to want to see sitcoms. They're still going to want to see game shows. They're still going to want to see dramas. And we have a program that helps people get prepared for that. I think from a news standpoint, we have great access to professionals who want to work with students, not who just will work with students, but want to work with students. And not many other places can say that they're in a top 20 market in the country and their students get internships very regularly at the stations here in town.
And that's very true, actually, yeah. All right, well, that concludes my interview with Dr. Brown.